This is Diana Sullivan in Austin, Texas. The sweaters in my current book are knitted upside down. That is, you make the fancy yoke first, then you turn the yoke over, and you knit from the yoke to the bottom of the sweater, picking up stitches along the yoke and knitting in that direction. Well, at the bottom of the sweater, you need ribbing, and if your machine doesn't have a ribber, you were planning on latching up ribbing. However, your problem is that you need the ribbing to all latch up to exactly along the same line. You do not want your ribbing to be up and down or messy, and so you need some kind of a trick to make it easier to latch up ribbing. Let's say I've been knitting along on this sample and now I need to do ribbing. Well, the secret is to create what hand knitters call a lifeline. A lifeline is just a string running through the knitting that prevents the stitches from unraveling. And in our case, it's going to prevent the stitches from unraveling too far when we go to do our ribbing. The first thing I'm going to do before I put my lifeline on is select every third needle. Now, usually when you hand latch ribbing, you do every third needle instead of every second needle. Not only does this save time, which is the main reason people do it, but it makes for a better looking ribbing. You will have a better time of getting the tension right by doing it this way. So what you want to do is thread a needle with a color that contrasts strongly with your main knitting, and it needs to be skinny string or thread, not something terribly splitty. Go ahead and poke the needle in and pull the string through that stitch, and then bring the string down and be ready to do the next one. So poke in and pull through. So in order to make it easier to get in the hole, I lift up a little, put my needle in, pull it through, and then bring the yarn down like this. Now, if your machine has gate pegs instead of the striker comb that this one has, you're going to have to be careful not to tangle this contrasting yarn into the gate pegs. But you see how easy that is? In my case, I turn my tension dial a whole number tighter. And then I'm going to knit the number of rows for the ribbing. Let's say that I need 16 rows of ribbing. And I'm going to have my carriage set so that it knits all these needles, even the ones in hold. After I knitted my 16 rows at the tighter tension, I need 1 row at a looser tension. This will facilitate my loop through a loop bind off that I'm so very fond of. And I happen to be on tension 2, and this machine, the LK150, tends to run kind of big. So I'm going to go up to tension 6.5 and just do that last row slowly. Then I have to pick out the stitches that I'm going to drop. So I'm going to get the 3rd and the 6th and the 9th. In other words, every 3rd needle all the way across. And then to drop them, I'm going to push them back, which makes the loop come off the needle, and these will drop like crazy. Looking at this, what you need to get is this loop right here, and it's pretty tiny, and you might say to yourself, gee, that's kind of hard to grab. Well, you can take a transfer tool and grab your lifeline and pull your lifeline up a little bit, and that will stretch that stitch open and make it really easy to grab that guy. And then put the latch tool in that stitch and get your transfer tool out of the way, of course. And now you're all set to latch that one up. And I'll just get that started. Now, one of the things that will save you time latching up stitches is try to go tug down firmly and try to go straight back. There's two ways to latch up stitches. One is to do this and to wiggle around until you have the stitch below the latch and the stitch in the latch and then pull through. But the other way is to go straight back, and you can feel as the old stitch pops behind the latch, and that's your moment to poke into the new stitch. When you get to the very top, of course, that last row is very loose, and that's what we want because we're going to do the loop through a loop bind off later. But look how beautifully that worked. And I suppose I need to show it once more so that we can look at how we put the stitch on the needle at the end a little more closely. So let me get the next one. It doesn't matter whether you're above or below the lifeline. Won't do any harm. It's kind of a big latch tool, and these are kind of small stitches, and I have a definite popping sensation as I come through them because the tool is kind of big, so it pops through. But if you look right here, I'm about to put this loop on this hook right here, and what I do is I go up and I catch this hook with my latch tool, bring my stitch behind the latch, and I can lift it on just like a transfer tool. So it makes it really easy to get the stitches back on. I'm going to go ahead off camera and I'm going to latch all of these stitches up, and then I'll come back and show you the loop through loop bind off. I put my needles all out in hold position and I poked my stitches back behind the latches. I'm going to start on this far right end using my latch tool. I put my latch tool in this first stitch and I pull the needle out of it, and now it's on the latch tool and it's down in the hook. I'm going to push the latch tool into the second stitch. What I want is a situation where the stitch that's on the needle is inside the latch and the stitch that's from the needle before is down below the latch. Then I can remove the second needle. And I continue to do that, poking in and repositioning each time and then pulling through. And I like to pull right off the ends of the needle, but if you are new to this, you'd probably be more comfortable just taking the needles out one by one and having the needles as more of a stitch holder for a little extra security. But I suggest that people practice this because not only is this a very fast bind off, but this is a good looking bind off. This is very much like the hand knitter's tedious bind off where they pull the loop through a loop after they've knitted the next stitch loosely. So I'll get the rest of that bound off and show you on camera how that looks. At the end of the row of pulling loops through loops, you need to get the loose end and pull it through the last loop, and that finishes it off, and that can be tightened up. After the whole job is done, one of the things that you can do is remove your lifeline. Just give it a tug and out it comes. If you split the yarn on the lifeline, no problem. Take little snips in it without cutting your keeper stitches, and then you can take it out in pieces. Who cares? This is something you're going to discard. Here is my finished edge. This makes such a terrific edge. It is a chain stitch along the top, just like a hand knitter's bind off, and it waves in and out for the knit and purl stitches. It pulls in nicely from the regular fabric because I did tighten up the ribbing from the rest of the fabric. And I just strongly encourage you to try this little technique. There are lots and lots of situations where you need to work your ribbings last.